Hi, I'm Eric Froehlich, and I'm going to play a $22 turbo sit and go on full tilt poker. Alright, we're going to start in the big blind here, and we have the king two of clubs. Not really worth getting crazy early on, so we'll just fold to that raise. I think the first level, which is only a few minutes here in the turbo sit and goes, you just kind of want to get a feel for the table and find out who's kind of crazy and who you can get chips off of. The times when it's appropriate to use the time bank in a turbo sit and go is never. The problem is, if you're playing sit and go, usually it's actually mathematics. There's really not a lot of, feeling people out. You can't really put a read on people. You're playing online, and the blinds start so high and move up so fast that you can't get like phenomenal reads on people, that you should really have to tank and try to put one of your advanced reads on them. And so time bank is going to be a pretty rare thing, mostly when you have to go to the bathroom. 5-2 off, so we'll fold that one as well. And we would have flopped a pair of twos, so kind of tilted. Really have not seen a lot of flops early on, although that isn't really rare in sit and goes. We're only starting with 50 big blinds, which is kind of a lot, but it's going to go up really fast. I think the reason that these things are valuable is once you really get an understanding of sit and goes, there's an appropriate strategy for where you should really be pushing all in a lot, which is usually in the later stages, but that comes a lot faster in the turbos. And so you need to be comfortable putting all your chips in with queen high, basically. Eventually we'll probably get a hand that we can play, and then it'll be more fun, assuming we still have chips at the end of it. I play a lot of the turbo sit and goes, and usually not very high, but still in like the 70s and 100s, and people have a little better understanding of the game. Not really a lot of reason to be limping in 9-handed tables, ever. Yeah, every time I enter the pot, it's always going to be for a raise or a re-raise. I mean, I guess sometimes you'll top off the small blind, just call, see a flop, especially if you think the person in the big blind is not very experienced, and you can take the pot away. But other than that, I mean, I'll limp when there's a lot of other limpers. There's not always a reason to get crazy pre-flop, but if you're going to enter the pot, it should be for a raise. Yep, blinds have already gone up. We're already at 2040 and haven't even gone a whole rotation in the blinds yet, so pretty soon it'll be 800, 1600, and we'll just be all in. The levels in the turbo are 3 minutes, so it depends on how fast the hands play out, but they're going to often go up twice in just one blind rotation. So if you fold your blinds and try to hope for it to get back around to you, especially in the later levels with like 100, 200, and you want to save your chips, until you have to commit, it's very likely it's going to be something like 300, 600 by the time your blinds come back around. So you really have to play your hands pretty fast. I think the beauty of these sit and goes is that, especially since it is a lot of math, like I said, and not a lot of necessarily putting reads on people, that it's one of the easier games to multi-table. That it's not like a cash game where you really want to learn your opponent's tendencies, because once the table's over, I mean, you might play with them again, so it's good to know how they play, but it's not quite the same. And so you can really play a lot of tables sit and goes. You'll see people playing, upwards of 20 sit and goes at once, which I find kind of crazy, but I can definitely do, 10, 12, something like that, and do it pretty comfortably and feel like I'm still playing pretty good poker. And the blinds go up again, and we have our first playable hand, pocket threes. Make it 150. Really don't want a lot of action here. Our hand isn't good, but I don't feel like folding anymore. It's certainly good enough to raise, so. Won that pot. Showed them. I'm almost always going to raise under the gun with a small pocket pair in a 9-handed game. If you get re-raised, you usually have to fold, but the bright side of raising under the gun is that if you do get a caller in second position or third position, it makes it easier for other people to call, and you really don't mind playing a 5 or 6-way pot, especially with a lot already in there. It's very likely you're going to get paid off for an entire stack if you hit your set, if there's already enough money in there that it warrants big bets. And so it can be really profitable to enter for a raise there. Ace 7 off. And this is a hand that's pretty bad that you can't really call a raise with, but you can certainly open the pot. From the small blind, I'll definitely raise if it folds to me. If anyone raises, I'm just going to fold. It's a terrible hand to be playing out of position. It's not a hand good enough to 3-bet. So we're just going to let it go. However, it's certainly a favorite over a random hand in the big blind, or if I was on the button or cutoff, I would usually open the pot. It's very unlikely that anyone can call, and if they have a hand like A7 themselves, they should be folding, so there's value in raising. Kind of weird that we've already gone around the entire rotation of the table, and no one has really lost even a lot of chips, let alone go bust. It's, you know, especially this is what, hand 10 or 11, everyone's still at the table, and it's actually kind of rare for a low limit sit and go. You usually see people get pretty crazy with their king jack offs and get all in pre-flop. If they don't, I probably will. Still more limping, even though we're in level 3. It's how you can usually pick out your weaker players. Really haven't picked up much on any players. It's pretty clear that the Linda Mac is inexperienced by raising to 5 times the big blind and limping a lot, neither of which is a very good play. Of course now, kings against aces. Not really much anyone can do about that. It's kind of gross. And finally someone is eliminated, and it was the only player who appeared to be extremely weak, so that's great. We got none of their chips. I mean, no specific reads on any of the players at this point, but everyone's playing really slow, and that leads me to believe that a lot of people aren't that experienced, and, well, I guess I can't even really say that because I haven't played any hands either, but, you know, if they're willing to fold their hands later on in those tough marginal EV spots when you should be, you know, shoving and folding a lot when the blinds get big, could mean that we're going to be in a stronger position because I have no problem getting all my chips on. It would be nice to pick up a few chips before we get to that point, though, so if we do lose a couple of races, we won't just be out. But the cards aren't really cooperating with that quite yet. And still more limping. A new limper has entered the pot. I guess limping under the gun isn't nearly as bad as limping on the button, but still, if you're going to put 60 in the pot, why don't you just put in the 180? Now we have min betting out, min calling. Maybe we're playing limit. Did I click on the wrong thing? Limp under the gun with king 10 off. All right. Not the finest play in the world, but worked out for him. Blinds up again, 40-80. So yeah, and at this point we only have 1,455 chips, so we really don't have that many blinds. We have 18 big blinds to work with, a good stack for if someone raises. We can 3-bet all in, but yeah, I really have not seen anything yet. Big blind would have been a great spot to get a hand better than 6-3 off, but not happening here. Really want to keep your stack to, if you can, you know, at least 10 big blinds so that you have a good stack to open shove and have fold equity. Once you start getting smaller than that, it really becomes a problem. You have no real chips to protect your big hands. And people are going to call you so you can't shove light, so it really puts you in a tough spot. Here hits a river. Ace 10 beats jacks, 7-handed. Ace 7 of diamonds. This might be our glory hand. If it folds to late position, you can put them on a steal. It's a good spot to 3-bet all in. This person really hasn't played a lot of hands in a middle position, so I think our best bet is to fold here. Ace 7 just not that strong. He's not going to fold Ace 9 there. Six, 7 of clubs. I'm a big fan of this hand. Gonna raise. Try to steal the blinds. Can't call if anyone shoves, obviously, with 7 high, but we're in position if someone just calls. There's a good chance we can just outplay them on the flop anyway. And we're keeping parity. It's been a pretty solid stack. 1455 has pretty much been the magic number. Usually in the sit and go, when the average stack starts to be around 10 big blinds, maybe a little bit less, there's really no decision making anymore. Even if your stack is 25 big blinds, if everyone else has 8 or 9, you're still shoving anyway. You know, you have to play their virtual stack. If everyone else at the table has less than 10 big blinds, you're playing 10 big blind poker. Obviously, the fact that you have more than that isn't going to affect the size of the pots. I mean, it allows you to do more because you're not going to go broke, but at the same time, your play is limited. You have to, you know, go all in or fold. And now that blinds are 50 and 100, we're getting closer to that range with everyone starting at 1500, still 7-handed. It's not good for the blinds to get to 50, 100, and your best hand by far is pocket threes for the day. Guess we're just waiting for the blinds to get big for that rush. And there it is, 10-5 off. Slightly better than Doyle's hand. We'll of course fold it, even in the small blind. As the blinds continue to go up, I'm really just looking for a hand to kind of push over the top, get all in. If that doesn't happen, once the blinds get big enough, we're just looking for, you know, good position to try to shove. If it folds around to our small blind and, you know, we only have 8 big blinds left, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to shove 2-7-0 probably. Nobody's really shown the willingness to gamble anyway, so shoving light really doesn't seem like that bad a spot. I don't know how light people will call me with if everyone's been as card dead as me. It's hard to say. Obviously, if they're folding decent aces and stuff like that, it becomes way more profitable to be shoving light. But right now we still have 13 big blinds, so not the worst spot in the world. Maybe if I change the background, maybe that'll help. Go to Vegas for some gambling. 4-3 of clubs, not the worst hand in the world, of course, under the gun raise, so no decision anyway. And we are down to under 10 big blinds for the first time. Now we're shoving any playable hand. This would be one of those playable hands, should it fold to us. Fortunately, once you get to this amount of chips where you have less than 10 big blinds, especially if he's opening for 4 times the pot, we have absolutely no fold equity. He's calling us with any hand, and bad hands such as queen jack off just have us crushed. So really, we lose all our value there. That wouldn't have been a hand that we would have minded seeing, but no fold equity. Looking at best a flip, more than likely. I mean, you could easily have a hand like ace-4 where it's not a good hand, and if we had a lot of chips, you'd have to fold, but we just do not have that. There's definitely a point where you're short enough that your cards don't matter anymore, but we're really not even that close to that yet. I mean, even at 3 big blinds, especially at this level, you have some fold equity if you open shove, because it's the same as a standard raise, and I think people don't realize how light they should be calling you in those spots. Unfortunately, we're actually going to get to 3 big blinds pretty fast here if we don't pick up anything, but especially here, it depends. It really depends on your table, because you'll find some tables where if there's a lot of gamble, that it doesn't matter that you have 6 big blinds, they're going to call you with virtually nothing. And in some tables, you'll be playing with 3 big blinds, and there's a good chance they're going to fold. It's really hard to figure out what the case is, especially playing these turbos. You don't have a lot of experience with the players, so you really have to go with your own discretion. In this case, I'm trying to just go with the cards. Obviously, if I get, you know, much shorter than this, it's going to be one of those just shove and pray situations. But yeah, it's definitely getting close to that stage just because it doesn't seem that there have been a lot of people who have shown a huge willingness to gamble. So we can let our stacks get a little bit smaller and think that we can still pick up some blinds. Of course, you still have to use position. Like right there, king-9 off, obviously not a bad hand. If the situation had been a little bit different and I had the button there and it was folded to me, I absolutely would have shoved that hand. But I still had 4 people to act even before the blinds got their chance to act. And so it's way too likely that someone's going to pick up a hand, especially a hand that has me dominated. So really not the best spot to be getting all my chips in. Now this would have been a solid hand to get my chips in, but someone raising under the gun again, there's just, you know, ace-6 of diamonds is just going to be dominated almost all the time. And if not, if he doesn't have an ace, good chance they have pocket nines, and, you know, you're just crushed. Definitely a hand I would have open shoved again, but just bad position. Now, king 7, this is a hand that if it folds to me is good enough that I can shove. But it's not a hand that can go over the top of someone when I have no fold equity. And of course, with someone shoving, I cannot call. Ten-8 of hearts. It's good enough for me. 5.5 big blinds. Still have a little bit of fold equity. So we're going to stick it in there. Against a lot of hands, we're really not that big an underdog. You know, if we get called by ace high, as long as we have 2 live cards. We have a suited gapper, so we have a lot of cards that we can hit to improve our hand. It's worth getting it in there when we're so short. Try to pick up those blinds. Play is pretty weird. Raising it to 3 times the big blind on the button. Getting shoved and folding there. The blinds are just too big, and Froehlich already put in so much money that probably should be calling with any hand that you'd be raising, but not the case here. 100, 200, and we again have 5.5 big blinds. So, again, looking for anything. Assembling a hand. Not getting it. And 2 big hands, no one's obviously ever going to fold these. Ace, king, and jacks. Ace, king wins the flip. Could use either of those hands right now. 9-5 off a close second. Come on, fold. Yeah, no. Well played. King jack off. Not really bad to shove any 2 cards there. Kind of like we'll be doing if it ever folds to us, which it will not. I mean, we're shoving any 2 cards better than 7-2 off when it gets to us pretty much at this point. I think we want to fold. We got it. Ooh, an ace. So a really lousy hand again, but we have 5.5 big blinds, so yeah, if we get called, we're probably crushed, but can pick up more than a quarter of our stack in the blinds. And the one person we have covered. We have ace-2 off with a limp, so we're going to fold this one. Now we have a few chips to work with. Blinds are gigantic. Queen-9 off. We have to fold early position. Somehow still 7-handed. Seven-3 off. Can't really call an all in there, so I guess we'll fold that one again. Only one guy at this table has more than 10 big blinds. Second place has less than 8. So we are playing extremely short right now. King 4 hearts. It's going to be good enough. 3.5 big blinds left. Stealing the blinds is getting close to a double up. That's how big the blinds are. It's almost half our stack. And actually, stealing the blinds lets us leapfrog both of the library cop and the optical zoo in the standings. So, not really sure how it's possible to still have 7 players left. I think it shows that people are somehow not crazy at this $20 turbo sit and go. I've been shoving 7, 8 off, 8, 10 of hearts, king 4 hearts, and really didn't have much choice in doing so. And for 7 people to still be in, they must be playing really tight. That, like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I guess there's been a lot of limping and a lot of small pots, but yeah, you really have to get your chips in at this point, and I expect that over the next, 10 hands that we're going to lose several people. If not, already be in the money. Or the short stacks can keep doubling up forever. And still 7-handed. It's usually 7-handed by hand 2, so the fact that we are this deep into it and still this way is definitely an anomaly. All in and a call. Now I'm using the time. Nobody has really any chips to work with, so aces is a good hand here. Not after that flop, though. And the short stack is going to double up again, drawing almost dead. So pretty standard. Oh, our first good hand, and probably our last hand overall. Get it all in with the ace jack of hearts. Up against queens, pretty standard. Oh, that's a good turn. And we win that quote-unquote flip. Now we have all the chips in the world at 8 big blinds. Can really just go crazy at this point. Yeah, ace jack of hearts, first decent hand we've seen, and never really folding that there with a 2.5 big blinds left. Unlucky for pocket queens to run into my huge hand. Ace 4, it's a monster. Stick it in. Only one person can bust us, so 600 chips represents half of 2 of these players' stacks that we just stole. All the way up to 3,000 now, which is somehow a lot of chips because we're still 6-handed. Aces in against king high again. This time they're actually going to win. King 10 of diamonds was a good shove there in my opinion. Unlucky to run into aces. King 3. Under the gun with only 2 blinds. Not a lot of option there either. Run into ace jack. Two 9 of hearts. That's kind of my hand. It's my birthday, kind of my sign. It's like Valentine's Day-ish. I don't know. It's weird. All right, so we're 5-handed. Nobody has even 9 big blinds, so really aren't going to be folding anything decent at this point. In fact, in a couple hands, I'm probably just going to start shoving any 2 and hope that people actually care about making the money. Not those 2. And 250, 500. These guys have almost the same amount of chips. 9s and 10s. The best hand wins, and the short stack wins. Should have known. King, queen, calling anyone's all in at this point. Or getting a virtual walk. And river the straight, so four-handed. At this point, if it folds to me, got the short stack on my left, so I can shove pretty much any two. Hope that they actually care about making the money. Or I can get shoved in front of me and have no hand, so I fold. Jack 7 off. If it's anyone but the chip leader in the big blind, I'm going to shove there. Obviously the short stack needs to start getting it in with two big blinds and is in pretty bad shape, but short stacks tend to win this table. Not this time, so we cashed. King 10 of hearts, not folding it. My question is whether I want to stop and go, but not really worth it when you're only going to have 700 chips left. And it's a race. It's pocket sevens, bad flop, bad turn, game over. All right, guess that's it. That completes our sit and go. I finished in third place, won a cool $39.